As a mostly car content creator, the Insta360 Go 3 is one of the best pieces of technology ever gifted to a person like me of all time. Years ago when I reviewed the Go 2, I was blown away by how much cool tech they fit into that small little camera, and this round it's gotten even better. So here are the top 5 things you need to know, starting with what comes inside the box, because they give you everything you need to capture really any angle or creative idea you come up with. Starting with this hat clip for POV shots behind the wheel of your car. This gives the viewer a true feeling of what it's like from the driver's perspective while your Tesla is driving itself down the road all on its own. This is also an angle I really like for doing things like installs inside of my car or modifications, or really any type of thing where I'm going to be using both of my hands and I'm going to be moving all over the place, and this way you get a true perspective of what I'm working on.
All right, buddy. Ready to go? All right. Okay, go ahead.
Another way to do this is with the Pendent Mount, and this round with the Pendent Mount, they made it so you can now roll the cord up inside of it for storage, as well as you can now magnetize it horizontally. And if you're recording in standard video mode, you can now shoot everything in 2.7K up from 1440p on the Go 2, so if you need to zoom in on something, no problem. However, you will have to record in 1440 if you want to record in something called free frame mode. And speaking of free frame mode, the size of the camera, because it's the size of my thumb, you can put it and do most anything with it. For example, I taped it here to the wheel of my car, hoping to get some kind of weird perspective I hadn't seen before on my videos. And you can see that as the wheel is turning, the horizon stays the same. As well as I put it on my steering wheel for a different perspective, and even though I'm turning the wheel, and you can see my arms moving, the horizon stayed level. Pretty cool. Speaking of horizon leveling, because of the size of this thing, you can place it almost anywhere and at any angle, and the shot will still be level. Like we just talked about, when I put it on the wheel, it kept it level. Well, just like when I did this matte installation review that I did a couple weeks back, I could place the camera in small little places without worrying too much about which angle it was on, knowing that the video was going to come out level anyway. Now, if you're new here, thanks so much for coming and watching this video. Just do me a favor right now and hit that like button for me. It really helps the algorithm to get this video out to other people who might be searching for information on a camera like this. And of course, if you haven't already, please take a second and subscribe to the video so you don't miss any future videos. Now let's get back to the video. Now, speaking of that matte review, I was able to use many of the other mounts that came inside of the box as well, such as this magnet mount, which is really cool. Not only is it magnet, but it has these clips on here that when it goes on, it clips onto there real tight, and the only way to get it off is to pinch and release it. But what's really nice about this magnet mount is if you take this plate off, now this plate's really cool on its own. When you pop this off right here, this is a sticky pad, and this can be stuck pretty much anywhere all over your car, on your windshield, on your dash. It doesn't leave any marks up there, and it's fairly simple to take off. And if it gets too dirty and stops being sticky, just take some soap and water and wash it, and it's sticky again. But you can unscrew the base of this, and then you just have your standard screw in there for any type of selfie stick or other type of tripod mount. So this can really be attached to any of your other tools you've been using. And I believe this leads to one of the best features of the Go 3, and that is the action pod that comes with the camera. We now have a viewfinder. And if you're vlogging or talking to yourself on the windshield, as I often am, you no longer have to pull up the Insta360 app to make sure you're in frame. You can just flip up the viewfinder and you can watch yourself. I can't tell you how great this is. Now, as I mentioned, the camera is connected to the action pod by magnet and those clips. And when you press the little button on the side to release the camera, it is then connected to the action pod purely by Bluetooth. What this means is that if you're recording and decide you want to take your camera outside of the action pod to capture maybe a different shot because your action pod is mounted in your car somewhere, you can do this without disrupting your recording. So for example, if you're driving down the road with your camera mounted in the center of your car, but you want to show what's happening with traffic maybe to the left or right because maybe your car is about to make a turn on its own and you want to show your viewers what's going on over there, you can just pull your little camera right out, show what you need to show them, and then put it right back in again when it's time to go. That's huge. You can also use the viewfinder to switch between all the different modes. There's a lot of them. One of my favorite modes I use for driving, and is really fun for things like YouTube Shorts or TikToks, is something called time shift. Time shift is used when the camera itself is moving, like being mounted inside of your car, as well as other things around you moving. check this out. It actually makes it look super cool versus something like time lapse where everything else is moving, but the camera is stationary, which is another option. You also get 120 frames per second slow motion, as well as a few other options like loop recording, which just records at a loop and just saves a bit of it when you actually click record. I love throwing the camera up on top of my car for time shift. I think it looks super cool. And the great thing about it is that the camera outside of the action pod is waterproof up to 16 feet, not inside the action pod, but outside of it. So if you're gonna record in something like rain or whatever, you don't have to worry about it. Now, most of my drives that I do, I'm recording for 25 to 30 minutes as I challenge my car to take me from one destination to another, all in autopilot. And the reason why the Go 1 and Go 2 would never work for me was because they only recorded up to a maximum of 30 minutes. And the reason for that was because of the overheat protection. They just simply got too hot. But with the new Insta360 Go 3, they've figured out how to get rid of that heat. Not to mention that the battery life on the previous models wasn't all that great, which with the Go 2 was 30 minutes, and the Go 3 is up to 45 minutes outside of the action pod. And if it's in the action pod, which is the way I typically record, it can be upwards as long as 170 minutes of record time. And with this guy, because it's 128 gigs, I might be able to actually do that. And I have to say, heat is one of the #1 killers for me inside of my car recording. With the Tesla, there's a lot of sun that comes through that glass up there, so it gets very hot up there. So when you mount your cameras to the roof via a suction cup, and all my other action cameras have so many times over the summer just shut off on me from overheating, and I have never one time yet had this guy shut off on me, which I am just still shocked. And speaking of these long drives, one thing that can make a video terrible is sound, but the second thing is stability. So let's talk about those for a quick second. The Go 3 gives you 3 levels of stability. You get to choose from standard for activities like walking to max for activities like mountain biking. So inside of my car, I typically use just standard. It has the lowest delay in terms of video preview and has always been buttery smooth. But if I was to go jump on my mountain bike, I would definitely put it into max. And there's been some large improvements to audio. The Go 2 only had one mic on the very top. However, the Go 3 has a new mic on the very front. So that means when you're in the car recording yourself as it's mounted to your windshield, it sounds like this. One of my absolute favorite features about this camera and this upgrade from the Go 2 to the Go 3 is the ability to have this back viewfinder right here flip out. So both the phone app and the desktop app are extremely easy to use. They're quick. You can add keyframes to make small adjustments. You can change the aspect ratios. You can speed up the clips. If the clip was recorded in free frame, you can change the view angle from ultra to action to linear and so much more. So for me, as well as so many people, this little camera has opened up the ability to be way more creative. I'm no longer squashed by ideas that I have because the camera is too big or too heavy. Really, I feel like Insta360 took all the best parts of action cameras, the viewfinder, the lightness, waterproof, and put them together in one camera, and then took it beyond that with the ability to take the little camera out of it, still have the viewfinder. It's just been a ton of fun. So if you want more information about this camera, I'll put the link down below in the description.